Hi, this is Mark from Productive Computing, and in this video we're going to talk about FileMaker Go 17 and a brand new feature called Configure Local Notification, or notifications for short, or push events, or simply reminders. But this feature is awesome, and we're going to take a deep dive here in just a second. Now, if you want to learn more about FileMaker, come check out our website where you can learn about our professional consultation and design services. We also have plugins that do a variety of things in FileMaker, and we also have FileMaker and QuickBooks hosting and licensing. So come check that out. You may also want to subscribe to the channel where you won't want to miss these updates. We plan on having weekly updates and a monthly newsletter. All right, with that said, let's dig in and learn more about this notification business. So before we can really understand or appreciate the robust feature of this FileMaker Go 17 notification option that we have now, I thought it would be important to take a look at notifications in general and how they work on an iOS device. And undoubtedly, if you own an iOS device or use one regularly, you have already seen notifications, but maybe you haven't really fully looked under the hood to see all the different options you have with working with notifications in terms of their settings and preferences. And because FileMaker Go 17 offers us a lot of flexibility and a lot of ability to play with each of these options, it's important to see that now. So first, you want to go to your notifications area under your settings, locate the FileMaker Go option for this, and then you have several features here. You have allow notifications on or off, you have sounds on or off, and then you can show the alerts either on the lock screen, you can choose to show in history, and you can show as banners, either temporarily, like selected here, or persistently, like selected here. Then you get this nifty option down here, which is to show previews. And if you were to select that, you'll see that you can have it always, which is the default option, when unlocked, or never. So an important part of understanding how to implement this feature as a FileMaker developer, you'll first have to work hand in hand with the users in order to determine how they set this up on their individual devices. The good news is, even if the user doesn't allow notifications, you'll get some information back from the FileMaker script step indicating as such. All right, let's look at one or two likely scenarios to help you better understand some of the workflow options you have. Here's just a couple that I put together. So you take a user who might be working with FileMaker Go, they're actually on FileMaker Go, and their job is to create a task. And on that task, there's a save button. And that save button has been pre-programmed with a script that runs the configure local notification script step. And the script does three things. It has three script steps. We're going to look at something similar in a minute. It first sends a notification number 1 for a delay of 300 seconds, which means that that person will be reminded of that task in 5 minutes. At the same time, it runs another script step, which does the same thing for a 10-minute delay. And a third notification, notification number 3, for a 1-hour delay, or 3,600 seconds. Now, all of these have been queued up without the option to actually run a script. They're just a simple notification, and there's no scripts being called. Okay, so the user leaves FileMaker Go, but they continue to interact with the iOS device. They notice that there's a notification that appears after 5 minutes. However, they choose to completely ignore that notification. They don't click on it, nor do they clear it. They just ignore it. Then they see a second notification. At this point, they choose to ignore that notification directly. In other words, they don't clear it or go and click on it. However, they do manually go to FileMaker Go. They manually locate the task that they heard about on the notifications. They interact with that task, and they complete that task. And pre-programmed under the complete task button is another script that says if this task is complete, clear all notifications. So it will clear notification 1, notification 2, and notification 3. Now I didn't show clearing notification 1 and 2 because they are already cleared from the queue because they've been displayed once. Let's look at that same scenario with a slight modification. The person interacts with the task, creates a reminder, that's set to queue up a notification, but this time that notification is set to also perform a script. The name of the script is called Display Reminder. In addition, there's a second notification also set to call that same script, and a third notification, just like in the previous example. So really everything is the same, except this time we're calling the Display Reminder script. All right, the user then interacts with their iOS device. They have FileMaker Go closed in the background, but they do receive the notification 1, which they choose to ignore. Then they receive the second notification, notification 2. This time they select notification 2, which automatically opens up FileMaker Go and automatically runs the display reminder script that was pre-programmed to run, as you saw on the previous slide. This time, because the display reminder script has already been invoked, it can automatically clear the notifications without the user having to do anything on the task itself. Or that display reminder notification could give the user the option to snooze that task, whereby the script can then create a fourth notification or a brand new notification for 10 minutes in order to snooze it. So you can see here some of the power you have, whether you call a script or not, and then once you do call a script, all the different things you can do once the user interacts with that script. Let's go take a look at an actual demo where you can see some of this firsthand. Let's start our demo using the Core 5 CRM file here in FileMaker Pro Advanced. This is a file we sell here at Productive Computing, and the layout you happen to be looking at right now is the layout designed for the iPad. Along with that, I have an iPad connected directly to that as we speak. So we'll be flipping back and forth between these two screens to see this demo. Okay, there's a new button here that doesn't come part of the solution by default, but I went ahead and created it anyway. It's called Reminder, and this Reminder button is associated with a script that I created called Send Notifications. Now it's brand new, so you'll get to see me create this from scratch. I'll go here and look at the Send Notification script. And all of this boils down to a single script step called, and if you just put in Notify or N-O-T-I, you'll get Configure Local Notification. And out of the box, it starts out pretty simple. You really do have just two actions. You can queue up a notification, which is largely where we'll spend our time here today, or you can clear a notification. First, let's go ahead and queue up a notification. And these are the options that you have access to. Now, the first one here is called Name. And before we get too far, you may want to bring up the help on this function. So I'm going to type Configure Local Notification here on the right under Steps. Click on the single little question mark button, and that will bring up the help in your browser. There you can read all about this feature. And we're going to go through some of the aspects of that right now. Go ahead and bring in this detail screen so we can read about it while we look at this at the same time. Okay, so first the action parameter. That was the thing you just saw. You could either queue up a notification or clear it. The next one is Name. Name specifies the name of the local notification to queue or clear. You must specify a unique name for each notification. So in other words, this won't work without a name. Now it could be a number, like a 1, 2, 3, some ID. It could be a record ID. It could be something specific like a person's name, or something that uniquely identifies it so that you can keep track of it as a developer. That's how I would recommend it. Next is the script. Now this is optional. You don't have to call a script, but you certainly may want to. In fact, most cases you probably will want to call a script because you get a lot more functionality when you call a script. More on that later when we look at the actual demo. Then there's the delay. Perhaps this is one of the most important parameters because this dictates exactly when the notification will fire from the time that it was invoked from the script itself. So if you want a notification to actually appear at a certain date and time, you'll have to reverse engineer how many seconds that is from the current date and time. Next, we have title. This specifies the actual name of the notification, and this is something that the user could see if you define it. Then we have the body. So this is the main bulk of the text of the notification itself. I don't see any character limitation here, but I assume the character limitations are depicted by that of the iOS. Then we have button 1, 2, or 3, and those buttons 1, 2, or 3 specify the label of those buttons. So you can have 1, 2, or 3 buttons for your notification. Again, those are optional. And then button 1, 2, or 3, foreground. This specifies the behavior, whether tapping the button should move FileMaker Go to the foreground or keep it in the background. Then we have the compatibility, which of course is just FileMaker Go. So this command can only be invoked from Go. So you'll be doing all your programming on FileMaker Pro Advanced, and then you'll be able to do your testing and actual results on FileMaker Go. Now these are the return parameters, and we'll come back and look at this in just a minute. Let's go ahead and start our script before getting too much further. All right, so let's take a look at some of the options. In this case, I'm just going to give it a 1 for the name of the notification because it's a unique ID and I don't have to make it anything complicated for this demonstration. And for this first go around, we're not going to call a script. Keep it simple. We will put a delay. I'll put a 5-second delay. You'd probably never do a 5-second delay in a real-world example, but it works perfectly for testing. I'll give it a title, and I'll just call it my title. I'll give it some basic body text, and we'll provide one button and button label. Now, it's kind of a long button name, but let's give it a try anyway. And for the foreground, we'll put a 1 there because when that button is clicked, we do want FileMaker to appear. But you know what? While we're at it, let's just put a second button in here, and we'll call that my second button. And in this one, we'll return a 0, which will leave FileMaker in the background. All right, I think we've queued up our notification. Let's go make sure our button reminder is set to that. Yep, send notifications, and I'm not sending any optional script parameters. And now this should appear on my iPad. Okay, and before we go any further, I want to double check my FileMaker Go notification settings, and I want to turn on the banner. I'll keep it temporary, and I do want to show a preview, and that way you can see the behavior based on these settings. Okay, at long last, let's go ahead and send our first notification. I'll push the reminder button and immediately close FileMaker. So there's my first notification. Now notice it disappeared because I had my preview set to temporary. But I can always get to it under history if I have that setting turned on under my notifications. And there it is in my history. Now there's options here that you have to work with this. I can either immediately push the FileMaker Go notification with my finger. Let's do that now. And that will bring me right into the FileMaker Go app. Let's send another notification now. I'll close this. There's the preview. If I click on the preview before it escapes, again, the same behavior. I'll go right into FileMaker Go. Let's send another notification. There's the preview, but I'm not going to click on the preview. I'm actually going to pull down here and show you another option, which is to swipe left. This gives you 2 other options. Clear, which will clear the notification and not do anything. It won't actually bring you into FileMaker Go or anything. Basically, that's your way of ignoring it. Send another notification. We'll go right to history this time before the preview shows up. And then we'll swipe left. I can push view. Now, I finally get to see those buttons that I programmed. Now, if you recall, button 1 was the one that actually made the FileMaker app move to the foreground, which it did perfectly. Again, the moment I do that, if I go back to my history here, all those notifications are cleared. Let's make another notification. Close FileMaker Go. Swipe down to get the history. Here comes the history. Click and hold. There's another way to get to this detail area. This time I'll push my second button, which if you recall was one that said leave FileMaker Go in the background. Push that button and voila, notifications are gone. FileMaker has stayed in the background. Okay, so there are a lot of options that we just looked at there. Let's take this a step further and this time have it run a script. So we'll go in here and call a script that I've already set up here called capture results. And let's go take a look at that script. So I have a global variable set up called script parameter, and incidentally, it will get the script parameter. So it will receive the incoming information from the notification interaction. I also have another script step here called show custom dialog, which does essentially the same thing, but brings it to the foreground so we can all see it. We'll expand on this in a second. Now, what return values are we expecting? To know that, you have to go and look here in the help. You actually get 4 lines of data on the return values. The first line of data is the actual name of the notification. So that's your unique name. That's the number that you assigned, okay? Then on line 2, you'll get one of several options. You'll get an option that says notification selected, where the user actually tapped the notification. This lets you know what the user's doing. Another option is notification not displayed. The notification was not displayed because FileMaker Go was in the foreground. If FileMaker's in the foreground, you're not going to see a notification. The third option you might get back is notification not allowed. If the user has no notifications enabled, you'll get information about that with the words notification not allowed, which can be handy and you can decide what to do from there. And then another option here, which is the button label, and that would identify the button by which the user tapped in their interaction with the notification. All right, that's all on line 2. It'll be one of those options. Line 3 is a 1 if FileMaker was in the foreground when the script was queued, or a 0 is returned if FileMaker Go was in the background when the script was queued. And then line 4 is the optional script parameter in the Specify Script dialog box. So what I hope to see now when I execute this notification is some return data. Okay, let's go do that now. FileMaker Go here on my iPad. I'll click my button that says Reminder, which invokes the notification. There's my notification. I will push and hold that. And then I will push the This is button 1 option, which opens up FileMaker Go. And it invoked the script that I also told it to call. And if you recall, that script was to store the global variable as well as show a custom dialog. Okay, let's dissect this and analyze it. So we have a return screen from the script. And in line 1, we have the name of the notification, which if you recall, we named it 1, so that's correct. Then it tells us the name of the button we invoked, which is line 2. Line 3 was whether FileMaker Go was in the foreground or the background, 1 meaning the foreground. There is nothing on line 4 because we didn't send an optional script parameter in the Specify Scripts dialog box. All right, let me push OK, and let's set up another reminder notification. And this time, we will hold this and go to second button. Now, the second button was specified to keep FileMaker in the background. So we'll need to manually open FileMaker Go and see what we have here. So very similar. We've got 1 for the ID and with the name. We have the second button that was invoked. And then 0, meaning FileMaker Go was in the background when that button was selected in the notification. And of course, no script parameter as line 4. So as you can see, there are a ton of options that you have with this one feature. Let's go do one other thing here, and I will turn off the notifications in my FileMaker Go and not allow them at all. And let's see what happens. Okay, let's invoke our reminder system. Did you see what just happened? It immediately calls the script, and the reason for that is it knows there's no notification, so there's nothing to queue up. It's not even going to queue up anything because they're simply not allowed, and it'll return the result right away. Now that's great as a developer, so you can determine what to do, how to handle if that person doesn't have notifications. Here you could present a screen that says, hey, your notifications aren't on. If you want to be reminded while FileMaker is in the background, go turn on your notifications now, as an example. Now let's turn the notifications back on and allow them. And let's do one last thing for our demo today. In each of the examples you just saw, you'll notice that I quickly moved FileMaker Go to the background. What if FileMaker Go stays to the foreground when the notification is set to appear? So I'll push my reminder button. I'm staying in FileMaker Go, and just like that, the script that was associated with that appears here in the local application because I haven't left the local application. Let's say I set a notification to remind me an hour from now, and I still happen to be working in FileMaker Go. I'll get my reminder right where I need it, right in the application. I can push OK and proceed. Now, does that mean it also queues up a notification in the background? No, there is no history on that notification. There's nothing queued up. So when FileMaker Go is in the foreground, it handles it a little differently, but I believe it handles it in the way that you'd expect. Okay, one last thing I want to say about notifications. If you look at the other feature, which is Configure Region Monitor Script, there's a script that identifies whether FileMaker Go is within iBeacon range, and this was a feature introduced back with FileMaker 16. Now, if you use the two in combination, you can have the Configure Regional Monitor Script. When it identifies its location within an iBeacon, it can then invoke the configure local notification and send the user a notification even while FileMaker is in the background. And that's one of the biggest reasons I believe this feature has significant importance. These two together becomes a deadly combination of functionality that can bring a whole new level of workflow options and feature possibilities for you. I hope you enjoyed this video. For more content like this, consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, liking our Facebook page, or following us on Twitter and LinkedIn. We also have a monthly newsletter describing the latest happenings here from productive computing, as well as other industry-related news. Thanks for watching.